Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Painless Universal, a conversation with myself and Welsh. Today we're talking about the challenges of starting a new business. Are you a female founder thinking of starting raising funds in the market and taking your idea to the next level? That is so painful. Or are you a person who has this great idea? You've been looking around, you've seen people in pain, but not quite sure what to do to turn your idea into a business. My guest today, Rachel Carrell, will just be telling you about how she started her own journey to make it a successful company. Let me tell you a little bit about Rachel. Rachel was working as the CEO of the world's largest online doctor service when she had her first baby and experienced firsthand how difficult it was to arrange childcare. Then this led to her own baby being born, the Koru kids. Before that job, Rachel spent 6 years at McKinsey and did some work at the NHS. She has a DPhil in development from the University of Oxford, where she was a Rhodes Scholar, and was also elected a Young Global Leader by the World Economic Forum in 2014. Rachel lives in North London with her husband and her toddler. She'll be telling us about how her own success has led her to be an activator and motivator speaker for others who are going through this challenging journey, and how she's helping parents find their joy and overcome their pain of childcare. Meet Rachel. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Painless Universal, a conversation with myself and Welsh. The money issues, that's something that everyone goes through, and starting a business, building a business, maintaining a business is a lot of struggle. As I said in my introduction, our guest today will be telling us about how she's overcome these challenges to build a successful business. She's often described as a high achiever from New Zealand and someone who started from her passion and from her own pain to build a business. Let's meet Rachel Carrell.
Hello.
Hi, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. Having a good day so far.
Oh my goodness, anyone who reads your story will be so freaked out to talk to you. You're such a high achiever, and you've done this so it seems so smoothly. And I read all your story, and I saw where you describe it as the New Zealand All Blacks. Like, someone comparing you to that, and I was like, wow, who is this lady? I can't wait to meet you. How are you, and how is everything going at your end, and where are you joining me from today, Rachel?
So I'm joining you from my home in North London, and yeah, things are going well. My kids seem to be happily at school and being looked after. My husband is away for the night with his friend who is about to move away. So I call that his boy date, and I'm focusing on my work, and everything's good.
Oh, before we get into any of this conversation, can you tell us a little bit about you? Who are you, Rachel?
So you mentioned in the intro that I'm from New Zealand, and that is a huge part of my identity. I grew up in a really small sheep farming town in the bottom of the South Island of New Zealand. And you can take the girl out of Southland, but you can't take Southland out of the girl. So I eventually made my way to London, and I had a professional career, and I always had this thing inside me that I wanted to start a startup. And so for me, it was just trying to figure out what business I was going to start. I always knew I wanted to do something entrepreneurial.
Yeah, and not only did you want to do it, you actually did it and became really successful at it. I'll go back to your life. When people read your life history, one of the things I really felt fascinating is that you were formerly the CEO of the largest online doctor services. What was this role about, and how did this prepare you for your new challenge, which you're doing now?
So I was really lucky to get this role because I was working as a management consultant, and I had never been a CEO. I had never run a P&L, and I had never done anything really operational. And luckily, they took a chance on me. I felt very lucky to be given the opportunity. And so I was able to take over an existing business that had just been acquired and grow it. And I did manage to grow it quite a lot. I stayed there for 3 years, and it was such a great opportunity to learn how to be a CEO, because the business already existed and it was already doing really well. It already had about 20 staff by the time I took it over. But their marketing was not very well developed, and there were lots of things they could have been doing better. So I got to take something that was working and just really take it to the next level. And that was like the best training I could possibly have. I got to say, I made a lot of mistakes. I mean, when I look back at my time there, yeah, I did some things right and the business grew, but I cringe about so many memories of, like, I think I would do things very differently, if I were to do it again now. But it was a way to learn, and I'm always about learning.
But you grew the business massively. I think people should not underestimate you, because you grew that business big. It's now expanded. I think you grew it expanded in 3 other countries. So this is an online doctoral service, and you managed to get teams, built it out. And this is something people who are starting business normally struggle with. I know you said you made some mistake, but how did you know you were doing it right? The ones you got, the big things you got right.
So, I mean, the proof was really in the results. So you're right, it did grow. When I took it over, it was doing 6 million revenue and it was break even. And when I left, it was doing 20 million revenue and it was generating 5 million a year in profit. So, that's how I can say, well, something I did worked. But I think, how did I know what to do when I'd never done that job before? I just tried to learn absolutely as quickly as I could. And the big thing that it was very obvious to me when I took over that job, the big thing that I really needed to learn that I didn't know anything about was digital marketing. And this was in 2012, so a long time ago. From, in digital marketing terms, 10 years is like a lifetime. And no one in the business really knew anything about digital marketing either. So I had to become the expert for the business very quickly. And when I say very quickly, I think I about 5 or 6 weeks before I started the job, I decided that I needed to do a crash course in this particular skill. And from zero, I mean, I knew nothing about it. But what I did was I bought books, I watched YouTube videos. There's an enormous amount of free training out there. Like anything you want to learn in the world, you can learn for free, with the internet now. And I just did it almost full time. I mean, I was working full time at the time, but I would come home and I didn't have kids at the time, which helped. Um, but I would come home from my job that I was doing, and I would just work until like 11 o'clock, at night or midnight, just like learning. I was like insanely on a high, actually, with like learning this new topic. I always get on a bit of a high when I learn a new topic. And I did that for about 6 weeks. And if you spend like 5 hours or so a day, every day for 6 weeks, it's amazing actually how much you can learn in that time. And because no one else in the business knew anything about this, by the time I arrived, well, I wasn't an expert, but I was the expert as far as the company was concerned. I at least knew more than anyone else. And then that allowed me to identify real experts. You have to learn enough to be able to find the real experts. And then that was the start of it. And then I was off.
Wow. And that led you, like in 2014, you were personally named by World Economic Forum as the Young Global Leader. What
Yes.
does that mean to be recognized by them as a young global leader?
Are always nice. But I think more importantly than that, there was a community of these people who were young global leaders. And I am such a huge believer in the power of community. And for me as a founder and as a CEO, I have learned so much from other founders and other CEOs. And everyone faces versions of very similar problems. The problems have slight differences, but at their core they are often very similar. And over the last 5 or 6 years, I've built up this group and community of people who are facing the same kind of challenges. And I solve all my problems by like asking my community for help, and trying to help other people where I can as well. It's really how I do. I would say about 75% of my job just involves me like having a problem and then going to my community saying, hey, I have this problem. Does anyone else have this problem? Does anyone else conquered this problem? Can we talk about it? Can you share? And then, helping other people who are a little bit behind me as well. So that is honestly the key to me doing my job.
When you left the company as CEO of the online doctor services, your daughter was born. And when your daughter was born, you realized there's a big gap in the way mothers and, juggling being a mother, doing work, and, issue every woman could relate to, childcare. I relate to, I've got two kids, and making it worse, my kids have different age gap and different ages and not even similar in ages. So what I have to do for the first one is so different from the second one. And you noticed that this difficulty, this challenge, this pain so many mothers, parents, fathers as well go through. How did you manage when your daughter was born to juggle this issue and to deal with your own first crisis before you went on to the business side?
It was really hard, like it is for everyone. I think I was very lucky in that I found a great local childminder. And so my daughter was with that childminder from a very early age. I went back to work full time at when she was only 7 weeks old, which in the UK where that's very unusual. Most people take a year off. I think in America that's much more common. Like people take a lot less time off, but in the UK it was unusual. And I had a really great local childminder, but what I discovered was that my daughter was with her for 3 years, and then that childminder moved away, and there were no other local childminders, not a single one. She was the last one in the area, and so this really struck me. And by the time this happened, I'd already set up Koru Kids, but there's are huge holes in our childcare system. This huge lack of supply. And so that's one of the reasons that I now am just in the process of launching actually a childminder service. So we now help people set up home nurseries in their homes. And it's directly responding to this experience I had where I really wanted a local childminder and I literally couldn't find one.
But you went on to start Koru Kids, which is
Mhm.
a nanny sharing services which pairs families looking for childcare. How does this work? Anyone out there who's struggling, and your website is out there to help everyone, it's help there to help parents like myself to make your life better. How does Cora Kids work?
So we have two services, and one is part-time nannies. It's really hard to find great part-time nannies,
I agree.
and it's especially hard to find them for after-school care. And really early on, I did this piece of research where I actually contacted the 33 boroughs in London, and I asked them for their statistics, and I discovered when I added it all up, I discovered that 1 in 3 schools in London doesn't even have an after school club. They don't even have one at all. Like, what are the kids meant to do? What are the parents meant to do at 3:30? There's nothing. And that's not even counting, the ones whose after school club is full, or maybe the kid doesn't like it, or lots of things, right? So it became very obvious to me that after school care was a huge problem for a lot of parents. And so that's why service number one is nannies for part-time nannies, especially for after school. And then our service number two is this new home nursery service, and that's for the younger kids, babies, and for toddlers. And for that service, we help people set up home nurseries in their homes so they can look after a couple of kids from a couple of families. It's actually beautiful because it allows people who've just had a kid to work from home, look after their own child. Mothers are just faced with this horrible dilemma when they just have a kid of either going back to work and spending almost all of their money that they're earning on their childcare, which seems nuts, right? Like, why would you spend all your money paying someone else to look after your kid? That's insane. or they give up the career that they've worked so hard to get, the training that they've done, all the education, they just give that up and stay home with their own kid. That's a very tough dilemma for a lot of parents. What I'm excited about with this new service is that we give a third option, which is, but women who've just had a baby can stay home, look after their baby, but also look after another baby or another couple of kids, continue their career in childcare, and we give a ton of support. And we train, that we do all the marketing, we find the families, we do all the registration, we do all the back office, we manage the insurance, we manage the payments, like all this stuff that you don't want to do when you have a small business, so that the mom, in this case, in this example, can all they have to do is just focus on looking after the kids. That's all they have to do.
A lot of people try to do this. I mean, when I was looking for childcare, a lot you see different agency, but I think it sounds so easy. But why does your one truly work? I know you.
Yeah.
Why does your one truly work?
I think because what a lot of people find is that the really exhausting part of what they're doing is the paperwork and dealing with Ofsted, dealing with the registration, all of that. And that's the bit that we do. And we give so much support with, activity ideas and community. Like everything we do is centered around making the job as enjoyable and fun and easy, just freeing up all the time, so that the only thing that you have to do is look after the kids, which for a lot of people is the most joyous part. Like that's why they want to do the job. They don't want to do the job because they want to do paperwork. No.
Oh no, absolutely. Like that is my most dreaded bit, because you have things you have to take care of and to deal with this bit. You're like, no. But you were saying you're a mother, and I think this whole thing came from you being a mum. How do you balance? I think it's so difficult to balance being a mother and starting this business. How was it for you? How did you balance it when you had your daughter, Naomi?
It's hard. And one thing that I found was that I was I never had much of a tolerance for wasting time, being in boring meetings or whatever. I was always pretty impatient, but after I had kids, my patience went to zero. Like I would be sitting in a meeting thinking, you know, this is a pointless meeting. I could be with my kids right now. And that became completely intolerable after I had kids. So I think the biggest thing is that it just made me so aware that like every second that I wasn't with my kids, it had to be for a really good reason. And for me, the motivation that I have to build a better childcare service for everyone, because of how much I know it's going to help everyone, like that for me is worth, it's worth getting out of bed for. And it's actually it's okay that I'm not with my kids, because I think the mission is just so important.
Mm.
Like from a day-to-day basis, to be honest, the pandemic has really helped a lot, because I don't have to have the commuting time, and I have a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I can walk my kids to school, and I can see my 3-year-old during the day. So I actually see my kids a lot more now, which is great. From a really practical perspective, I do work late at night. I do work flexibly, but I take every weekend almost completely off. And I really try to protect my family time. I also try to delegate as much as I possibly can. So if there's anything that I can get anyone else to do, around the house, I do that. And I don't sweat it. Like honestly, our house is kind of messy, and I think that is fine. That I would rather have more time cuddling my kids and reading them stories and a messy house than like a beautiful house, but less time cuddling my kids. So I think sometimes you just have to make trade-offs.
If I'm to ask you what next for Koru Kids, I mean, you guys have done amazing work. I saw your website. You've got a large team already. You're really serving the community. What next? Do you feel you're going to grow in different countries and thinking of expanding? How?
Yes, I am very excited about us expanding, and we've been so I founded Koru Kids in 2016, and almost from day one, I had parents saying, "Can you open up in my city? Can you open up here? Can you open up here?" And we always said no, 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 because I was so keen to get the service really, really, really good. And so I wanted to just stay in one city until the service was absolutely excellent, and only then go outside London. And it's been very exciting this year, because this year, for the first time, we have said, yes, we are expanding. The service is now absolutely amazing. And so we're ready. And so we're now live in Surrey, in the UK, in Surrey and Hertfordshire, Bristol, Birmingham, Manchester, Brighton. I think that's everywhere. And we're going to stick with those places for a while, and just, again, like make sure everything is absolutely brilliant in those places before we do the next wave of expansion. But I do want to build a global brand. I do think childcare is terrible in many parts of the world, not just in the UK. I mean, it's very terrible in the US. So I'm pretty interested in what's going on over there. But there's a lot of problems to solve in childcare. It's too expensive. The quality is too hard to find. There's not enough emphasis on training. There's not enough career development for people who work in it. It's not respected enough. So we have a lot of work to do ahead of us.
And I think you guys will do it because you started such a brilliant thing, and this is so easy. And parents who are so busy need this help at hand, because it's really difficult to get kind, reliable people to look after your kids. And it's when you have that, you could just really, your work takes off on its own. The key issue for a lot of women like yourself who are female entrepreneurs is the fundraising side for a new business. Anyone starting a business just think, okay, it's just going to do this, but to expand, that takes fundraising. But you successfully completed your fundraising rounds, and you've raised multiple rounds for the business. What words of advice would you give to a female entrepreneur who's looking to raise funds for her business and finding the confidence in getting that through?
I think that people need to like get mentally ready for a lot of rejection and not take it personally. Even when you see like someone like me, if I can tell my story in a way that makes it sound like I had no problems, right? If I say I raised 3 rounds of funding, every single one of them was oversubscribed. I couldn't even fit all the people that wanted to invest in my company into the round 3 times. I always raised more than I went out to do. Like, if I say that, which is all true, by the way, like that makes it sound like, I just sort of clicked my fingers and like the money tree started raining or something, right? The reality is, it is hard. It was hard. I heard no many dozens of times. Like, I never counted how many times, but like maybe 100 times. I don't know. And so I think you just have to, even for people who end up with a great result, you just go through so much rejection. And I think it's important to understand that, because occasionally I speak to founders, and they'll ask me for advice, and it'll turn out that, they've been told no like twice or 3 times, and they're ready to give up. And it's like, no, you got to talk to like 30 people, not 2 people. Someone the other day said to me, "Oh, I want to raise money, but I don't have time to talk to lots of people. I want to just raise money. I want to just talk to a few people and raise money." And I was like, "This is not the game. This is not the way it works." So, I think don't take it personally, and don't get dejected if you hear a lot of no's, because that's just part of it. And I think along with that, always make sure you get really good feedback, because the very first few times that you pitch to an investor, it's probably going to be terrible. Your pitch is going to be terrible. And again, don't be disheartened. Just like expect that. It's part of the process. And just think of those first few times as like practice. And then that's why it's really important to get real feedback. And if you feel like you're getting fobbed off, or you feel like they're not really being truthful about why they're saying no, like really say, make it okay for them to say no. Say like, please, can you tell me, can you give me more feedback? Say, look, please be brutal, like please tell me the truth, please tell me all the things I did wrong. Like almost beg them, because that feedback is absolute gold. And again, sometimes I run into people who are a little defensive. they don't want to, it's almost like they don't want to learn, they'll make up some reason like, oh, that person didn't understand, or they were stupid, or they were biased, or whatever it is. And it's like, well, you're not trying to learn. Like, that mental frame is not gonna get you quickly to the place that you want to be, if you kind of have that defensive mentality. So that would be my advice.
Oh gosh, Rachel, that's perfect. Does that apply if you're a female as well? Because I think there's not many female entrepreneurs who are going into the funding round and successful like you have been. Does that apply if you're a female? What advice would you give to someone, a woman looking to do the same?
Yeah, I mean, what I said before was, I said, look, you may think, oh, you're biased, and I
Mm.
don't want to imply that there is no bias. Of course, there is. That people are biased. Human beings are biased. We know that. But you can't, in the moment, you can't change that. All you can do is put it out of your head. And I am a very big believer in, like, I advocate for change in our funding system. I think absolutely there needs to be more funding going to underrepresented founders, whether that is women, people of color, like different people of different classes. Like, there's a lot of different forms of underrepresentation. And I think we should absolutely think about that and do something about that. However, when you are in the moment, when you are fundraising,
Mm.
and that moment, and only in that moment, my advice is just forget about it. Like, put it out of your head. Because I think the moment you're thinking about that, your whole brain is distracted, and you're not thinking about, like, really presenting the opportunity in the best, strongest way that you can. I actually like to do the kind of Beyonce, Sasha Fierce thing. Like, Beyonce has her onstage persona, which is Sasha Fierce, and she, like, thinks about, almost being this other person. And that's how I would rather think about this, is like, in that moment when you're pitching, like, the mental model you got to have, the mindset you got to have is, I am presenting to you an opportunity. And if you want to come with me on this journey, and if I accept your money, because I might not, then we are going to build something great together. And what I'm going to do right now is explain to you the opportunity, and we will together see if it's the right fit for you and if you're the right fit for me. And, like, that's the mental model. And you can't think like that if half of your brain is thinking, oh, this person might be biased, I'm a woman, like, blah, blah. Just forget it.
Oh my, that is the key. You summarize that well because I was working in investment banking, and I learned there and there. Forget being a woman. Forget being black. Forget you have a chronic illness. Focus on just doing your best. Putting that mask on and doing your best, because every time I try to use those little barriers to use it as an excuse, I found that barrier has always held me back. Then I'm like, oh, rather than me always putting my best. And when I started seeing myself as a human being who's going for an opportunity, I think the opportunity started shifting itself. It started changing for me. And I love that. That's coming from you as well, that you were saying to us, women out there, is to put in your best foot forward, and you will get there. But you just have to sometimes not let too many clouds in your brain when you're going for an opportunity, and just go for it. So
I
that's
think that's it. Like, and do whatever you need to do, think, like, game face on. Like, I do a lot of self-talk, like, come on, Rachel. I sometimes say it out loud. I'm working and I'm, like, getting distracted. And I'm like, come on, Rachel, like, get it together. Come on. Like, game face on, it's on. I know people who have, like, psych up music, which they listen to on headphones to, like, get them into the right mental space. It's a bit like, being an elite sports person. Like, sports people think about this, like, sports psychology, I think, in a really great way. Like, I think as business people, we can learn a lot from that, actually.
absolutely, absolutely. Sometimes when I have to go give a speech, I have to put the music on and put
Yeah.
really feeling that gets my voice loud enough and that I can really articulate what I need to say. The COVID, and now when we think of the COVID, it's always on everyone's mind, especially when we do business, and that has had a massive impact on businesses, especially. But in your sector side of things, it probably hasn't, because it's more and more parents more probably need a nanny. How did that impact you, and how did you manage to navigate yourself around it?
Yeah, it was a hard year. What happened was our parents' needs changed very dramatically several times. So, well, they went from needing an after school nanny to needing a full day nanny during homeschooling and having a lot of, support for education, and then back to after school, and then back to homeschooling again. But my team, the Koru Kids team, is absolutely phenomenal. I'm so lucky with the incredible people who work on my team, and they managed to help us navigate through that and react to things very quickly, build new product very quickly. I'm super proud of like a couple of things. We actually created our version of furlough, like a Koru Kids furlough scheme before the government furlough scheme came out. We didn't call it furlough because we didn't know that word, but it basically was a furlough scheme. And my team just created that really quickly. And, another thing we did was I think it was Thursday of night when the first lockdown was announced, to the Monday, my team created all day activity plans for our all our families for like looking after the kids for full days. And it took a lot of schools weeks and months to do the same thing, and my team managed to do it in like 2 days. I mean, it was really amazing. That my team is incredible, so that really helped us kind of get through it a lot. Our biggest challenge right now is we have so many great jobs, and we're actually struggling to find enough nannies. So we are recruiting nannies like crazy. We're recruiting nannies. We're recruiting people who want to set up home nurseries like crazy as well. And we also have a lot of internal roles. So we're recruiting people from marketing, engineering, operations. That's actually the biggest challenge right now, is recruitment, which is a nice one to have. I mean, it means we're growing very fast.
It's a very nice challenge, and you know what, people will not expect that that's one of your challenges. They'll think this challenge is actually to deliver the service, not actually to find people on the other side. And I think it's good you said that, because I think anyone watching this who might be in need of a job could also contact yourself for
Oh,
that.
please do. That would be great.
You're an award-winning entrepreneur. So many media has talked about you, about your work, and how successful you are as a female entrepreneur. What is the benefit of all the media exposure that you've got?
I think it helps with recruiting, actually. It's very often that people will contact me, sometimes even not related to a job. They'll just email me and say, I love the Koru Kids vibe. I love your culture and ethos, and I just really want to be part of it. And I love getting those emails. I love talking to those people, and sometimes we don't have an exact role for them right now, but it's funny, you can never predict the future, and we have had people come into the company from that kind of thing. So I think it helps a lot with that. And a lot of what we do is marketing and just trying to build our brand. Building a brand is hard. Anyone who has ever tried to build a brand will know that. And it's not like one thing happens and then your brand is built. It's built brick by brick. It's an accumulation of many, many, many things that build your reputation and your profile and all of that. So PR and media stories help with all of that.
Mm. Our final question before I let you go, because I know you have a very busy schedule. Mothers watching this would be wanting advice from you. What tips would you give a working mother who's also, I know we've talked about this briefly, about a working mother who's looking to balance being a mother and being a successful entrepreneur? What final message of hope would you give them to overcome their pain?
I think like the old saying, it takes a village, is very true. And I think it often we just take so much on ourselves, and we have such expectations for ourselves that we'll do it all, and it's just unrealistic. It's not possible, and it's not the best thing for either your business or your kids. So I would say assemble your team, and whether that is partner, family, extended family, like help that you pay, or like all the people around who are going to help. I just do not think you can do it yourself. And then also, I mentioned earlier the importance of community on the business side. And that for me has been so important as well, connecting with other mother founders, and founders, who aren't parents, who can help with solving some of the business problems. To me, it really is all about community.
Thank you so much, Rachel Carrell, for joining us today, sharing your wise knowledge on how to set up a business and your success We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time.
It was great. Thank you very much.